Jake Morrison felt his stomach twist as the massive alien station came into view through the cockpit window. Nexus Prime was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. The structure stretched for miles in every direction, covered in glowing lights and strange symbols that hurt his eyes to look at directly. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at ports that looked like they belonged in a dream. "First time seeing something like this?" asked Dr. Lisa Parker from the seat beside him. She was the best scientist Earth had to offer, a woman who had spent her entire life studying alien technology from the few crashed ships they had found over the years. Her hands shook slightly as she gripped her data pad. "Yeah," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. He was a commander in Earth's Space Navy, but right now he felt like a child seeing the ocean for the first time. "You?" "Same here. All those. Years studying their tech from fragments and crashed pieces. But seeing this ... She shook her head. "We're really small compared to all this." Captain Ryan Davis leaned forward from the back of the shuttle. He was their military expert, a man who had fought in 3 different wars on Earth and knew everything there was to know about human combat. "Size doesn't always matter in a fight," he said quietly. "Sometimes the small guy wins because he's faster or smarter." Ambassador Helen Carter looked up from her notes. She was Earth's top diplomat, someone who had solved conflicts between nations that seemed impossible to fix. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her suit was the finest Earth could produce. "This isn't a fight, Captain. This is diplomacy. We're here to join them, not oppose them." Their shuttle moved closer to the docking bay, and Jake could see other ships around them. Some looked like living creatures made of metal and light. Others seemed to be carved from single pieces of crystal. One ship nearby appeared to be made entirely of some kind of flowing liquid that held its shape. None of them looked anything like the boxy, practical ships that humans built. "Docking sequence initiated," came a voice through their communicator. The voice didn't sound human, but somehow Jake could understand every word. The translation technology the aliens had given them worked perfectly. "Earth vessel, proceed to Bay 779. Jake guided their shuttle through the massive opening. The docking bay was huge enough to hold a small city. Ships of every size and shape filled the space, and beings that definitely weren't human moved between them. Some walked on 2 legs like humans did, but others floated, crawled, or moved in ways that made no sense at all. "Look at that one," Lisa whispered, pointing to a creature that seemed to be made of pure light. It drifted past their window like a living star. "How does something like that even exist?" "The same way we exist," Helen said, but her voice was tight. "Just differently." They landed with a soft bump, and Jake powered down the shuttle systems. Through the cockpit, he could see a group of aliens waiting for them. One looked almost human except for blue skin and 4 arms. Another was tall and thin, like a walking stick, with what might have been a face at the very top. The third was something Jake couldn't even begin to describe, a shifting mass of colors that seemed to change shape every few seconds. "Well," Jake said, "this is it." They gathered their belongings and walked to the shuttle's exit. Jake pressed the button to open the door, and immediately the smell of the station hit them. It wasn't bad exactly, just completely alien. Like metal and flowers and something that might have been ozone all mixed together, the blue-skinned alien stepped forward and spoke in a voice that sounded like music. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, beings of Earth. I am Coordinator Vex of the Alturian Trade Federation. These are my colleagues, Researcher Thin Wind of the Ethereal Collective and Economic Assessor Fluxstate of the Mechanoid Consortium." Helen stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you for receiving us. I am Ambassador Helen Carter, representing Earth and all humanity. These are my colleagues, Commander Jake Morrison, Dr. Lisa Parker, and Captain Ryan Davis. "Yes," Vex said, and Jake thought he heard something like amusement in the musical voice. "We have reviewed your species application for membership in the Galactic Council. Most interesting." Researcher Thin Wind spoke next, its voice like wind. "Through tall grass. Your technological development is quite primitive by galactic standards. Nuclear fusion power, chemical rockets, basic computers. Most species achieve these milestones in what you would call their Stone Age." Lisa's face went red, but she kept her voice calm. "We've made rapid progress in recent decades. Our fusion technology is clean and efficient, and our computer systems are becoming more advanced every year." The shifting mass of colors that was Economic Assessor Fluxstate made a sound like static electricity. Somehow Jake understood it as laughter. Rapid progress, yes. From horse-drawn vehicles to spaceflight in merely 2 centuries. For most species, such development takes 10,000 years or more. "We're proud of our achievements," Helen said, firmly. "Humanity has always been adaptable and quick to learn." "Oh, we do not doubt your species' enthusiasm," Vex said. "The question is whether enthusiasm alone qualifies one for membership in a civilization that spans the galaxy." They walked through corridors that stretched beyond sight. The walls showed scenes from dozens of different worlds, cities that floated in the air, oceans made of liquid crystal, forests where the trees grew downward from the sky. Jake had never felt smaller in his life. "How many species belong to the Council?" Ryan asked. "Currently, there are 847 full member species," Thin Wind replied. "Each has earned their place through significant contributions to galactic civilization. Advanced technology, profound philosophical insights, artistic achievements that transcend planetary boundaries." "And what has Earth contributed?" Fluxstate asked. The question sounded innocent, but Jake heard the challenge in it. Helen straightened her shoulders. "We offer diversity of thought, rapid innovation, and a strong desire to learn and grow. Our military has extensive experience with conflict resolution. Our scientists are creative problem solvers, and our diplomats have successfully mediated complex disputes." "Conflict resolution," Vex repeated. "Yes, we have observed your species' tendency toward warfare, most concerning. We've also observed your tendency toward self-destruction," Thin Wind added. "Nuclear weapons, environmental damage, resource depletion. These are the mistakes most species make before achieving galactic awareness." "But we learned from those mistakes," Lisa said. "We've cleaned up our environment, reduced our weapons stockpiles, and found sustainable ways to use our resources." "Have you?" Fluxstate asked. "Or have you simply delayed the inevitable?" They reached a transport platform that would take them to the council chambers. As they waited, Jake looked around at the other beings on the platform. Some ignored the humans completely, but others stared with what might have been curiosity or amusement. One creature that looked like a walking tree leaned over to whisper something to its companion, and both of them made sounds that were definitely laughter. "They think we're funny," Ryan muttered. "Let them," Helen said quietly. "We'll show them what humanity can do." The transport began to move, carrying them toward the heart of Nexus Prime and the council chambers where Earth's fate would be decided. Jake watched the alien city pass by outside and wondered if they had made a terrible mistake in coming here. But it was too late to turn back now. For better or worse, humanity was about to meet the galactic community. The council chambers were beyond anything Jake Morrison had imagined. The circular room stretched upward for what looked like miles, with viewing platforms carved into the walls at every level. Thousands of alien beings filled those platforms, representing hundreds of different species from across the galaxy. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert countless languages into something everyone could understand. At the center of the massive space stood a raised platform where the council's leadership sat. Chancellor Zephyr dominated the area, a crystalline being that looked like it had been carved from living diamond. Light moved through its transparent body in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Around the Chancellor sat representatives from the major galactic powers, each more alien and intimidating than the last. "The delegation from Earth may approach," Chancellor Zephyr announced. Its voice echoed through the chamber like wind chimes. In a storm, Helen Carter led their small group down the long walkway toward the center platform. Jake could feel thousands of eyes watching them, and he heard sounds that might have been whispers, or might have been something else entirely. Some of the watching aliens made noises that were definitely laughter. "Honored Chancellor," Helen began. When they reached the speaking area, "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I present our application for membership in the Galactic Council. We come seeking partnership, friendship, and the chance to contribute to galactic civilization." The laughter started immediately. It began as small chuckles from the viewing platforms, but quickly grew into something that filled the entire chamber. Jake had never heard so many different kinds of laughter at once. Some sounded like human laughter, others like grinding metal or breaking glass. The noise was overwhelming. Chancellor Zephyr raised one crystalline hand, and the chamber fell silent. "The application has been reviewed by our experts. Tell us, beings of Earth, what exactly do you believe you can contribute to a civilization that has existed for millions of years?" Lisa stepped forward, her datapad clutched tightly in her hands. "We offer scientific innovation and rapid problem-solving abilities. In just 200 years, we've advanced from simple machines to space travel. Our research methods are creative and efficient." A voice boomed from one of the upper platforms. "Creative research methods," said Ambassador Thorak of the Draconic. Imperium, a massive reptilian creature with scales that gleamed like metal. "You mean the method where you randomly try things until something works? Most species call that accident, not science." More laughter filled the chamber. Jake felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he kept his expression neutral. Ryan stepped forward next. "Our military forces have extensive experience with strategy and tactics. We've developed effective methods for conflict resolution and peacekeeping." "Conflict resolution," hissed something from the shadows that Jake couldn't see clearly. "You mean the art of killing each other more efficiently? Your species has been at war for its entire recorded history." "We've also learned from those conflicts," Helen said firmly. "We've built international law, created peacekeeping forces, and established diplomatic protocols that have prevented major wars for decades." Chancellor Zephyr made a sound like crystal bells ringing. "Decades. How impressive." "The Ultrarian trade. Federation has maintained peace in their sector for 50,000 years. The Ethereal Collective has not seen conflict for twice that long." Representative Nexus of the Mechanoid Consortium spoke next, its voice like grinding gears. "Your technological development is equivalent to what most species achieve before they discover fire. Chemical rockets, primitive nuclear fusion, binary computers. These are the tools of pre-civilization. We're willing to learn," Jake said, speaking for the first time. "That's why we're here. To grow, to advance, to become better than we are." The chamber erupted in laughter again, louder than before. Jake could see aliens pointing at them, some literally rolling with amusement. One creature that looked like a floating jellyfish was glowing brighter with what seemed to be joy at their expense. Chancellor Zephyr waited for the noise to die down. "The Council appreciates your enthusiasm, primitive ones. However, membership in the Galactic Council requires significant contributions to galactic civilization, advanced technology, profound wisdom, cultural achievements that benefit all species." "What exactly are you saying?" Helen asked, though Jake could tell she already knew. "We are saying that Earth is not ready for membership. the Chancellor replied. Perhaps in 10,000 years, when your species has matured beyond its current infantile state, you may reapply. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. 10,000 years. That was longer than all of human civilization had existed. They were being dismissed like children, asking to sit at the adult table. But Representative Vex of the Alturian Trade Federation raised one of his 4 blue arms. However, the Council is not without mercy. We offer Earth an alternative arrangement. Helen straightened. What kind of arrangement? Protected species status, Vex announced. Earth would fall under the guidance and protection of the major galactic powers. Your world would be safe from hostile forces. Your people would be fed and housed, and your species would benefit from our advanced knowledge. What would that mean exactly? Lisa asked. Administrator Fluxstate of the Economic Council materialized. Next to Vex, its shifting forms settling into something almost solid. Earth would provide raw materials, agricultural products, and labor forces to support galactic civilization. Your military would be disbanded except for local peacekeeping. Under our supervision, all space travel beyond your solar system would require Council approval. Jake felt his blood turn cold. You're talking about making us servants. We prefer the term guided development, said researcher Thin Wine from the Ethereal Collective. Your species would be assigned roles suited to your current capabilities. Manual labor, resource extraction, food production. Essential work that contributes to the greater good. Ryan's voice was dangerously quiet. And what happens if we refuse this generous offer? Chancellor Zephyr's crystalline form brightened ominously. Refusal would be most unwise. The galaxy is a dangerous place for unprotected species. Pirates, raiders, hostile empires. Without Council protection, Earth would face threats your primitive military could never handle. Think of it as an opportunity, Vex added smoothly. Your people would work alongside advanced species, learning through service. Human workers would help build great projects across the galaxy. Your farmers would feed growing populations on frontier worlds. Your soldiers would serve in peacekeeping forces under proper supervision. Some humans show promise for more specialized roles, Thin Wang observed. Those with suitable genetics could participate in biological research programs. You're diverse. DNA patterns might prove useful for certain experiments. Lisa's face went pale. You're talking about using us as test subjects. We prefer genetic contributors, Fluxstate corrected. Your species' rapid adaptation abilities could provide valuable data for improving other species. The chamber filled with approving sounds from the watching aliens. Jake realized they weren't just offering slavery. They were offering it as entertainment. The great galactic powers would get cheap labor and amusing pets all in one package. This is a generous offer, Chancellor Zephyr said. Most primitive species are simply conquered or ignored. We offer partnership, guidance, and protection. How long would this arrangement last? Helen asked. Until your species proves ready for full membership, the Chancellor replied. Perhaps in 50,000 years, perhaps longer. These things cannot be rushed. Jake looked at his companions and saw his own thoughts reflected in their faces. They had come here seeking partnership and found only the offer of chains. Beautiful, bureaucratic chains, but chains nonetheless. We need time to consider this offer, Helen said carefully. Of course, Chancellor Zephyr agreed. You have until tomorrow at this time to provide your answer. I trust you will make the wise choice. As they walked back through the corridor toward their quarters, Jake could still hear the laughter echoing from the council chambers. Jake Morrison paced back and forth in their assigned quarters like a caged animal. The room was nice enough, with furniture that adjusted to human needs and a view of the station's bustling central plaza. But right now, it felt like a prison cell. Outside their window, aliens went about their business completely unaware that 4 humans were deciding the fate of their entire species. "We have to accept," Helen said for the 3rd time. She sat at the small table with her hands folded, looking every bit the diplomat she was. "It's not ideal, but it gives humanity a chance to survive and learn." "Survive as slaves," Ryan shot back. He stood near the wall with his arms crossed, his military bearing evident even in civilian clothes. "They want to use us as cheap labor and experimental subjects. That's not survival. That's slow death." Lisa looked up from her tablet where she had been studying the information they had gathered. "The genetic research programs concern me the most. They're talking about breeding humans like livestock to see what useful traits they can develop." "But it's temporary," Helen argued. "They said when we're ready, we can apply for full membership again." Jake stopped pacing and turned to face her. "Helen, they said maybe in 50,000 years. That's not temporary. That's forever. No human alive today would live to see their children's children's children be free. What choice do we have?" Helen's voice was getting sharper. "They made it clear what happens to unprotected species. Pirates, raiders, hostile empires. Earth's military might be good against other humans, but against aliens with technology thousands of years ahead of ours?" Ryan pushed off from the wall. "So we just give up? Roll over and show our belly because they're bigger than us?" "I'm being realistic," Helen snapped. "This isn't about pride. It's about survival." Jake activated the quantum communicator they had brought from Earth. The device was one of humanity's few truly advanced technologies, allowing instant communication across any distance. Within minutes, President Maria Rodriguez appeared on the screen, her face showing the strain of the past few days. "Commander Morrison," she said, "what's the situation?" Jake quickly explained the Council's offer and the debate raging in their quarters. He could see the President's expression grow darker with each detail he shared. "Let me understand this," President Rodriguez said slowly. "They want us to disband our military, give up our sovereignty, and provide forced labor to their empire?" "That's exactly what they want," Jake confirmed. "They call it protection, but it's slavery." The President was quiet for a long moment. "I need to consult with the Global Defense Council. Give me 2 hours." While they waited, Lisa made a discovery that changed everything. She had been accessing the station's public information networks, studying galactic history and politics. Most of the data was freely available, apparently because the Council never expected primitive species to understand its significance. "Jake, you need to see this," she called out. Her voice was excited for the first time since they had arrived at the station. He walked over to where she sat with her tablet. On the screen was a map of the galaxy showing Council territory in blue and uncontrolled space in red. Jake was surprised to see how much red there was. "I thought the Council controlled the entire galaxy," he said. "That's what they want everyone to think," Lisa replied. "But look at these sectors." She pointed to vast areas of red space. "The Wanderer clans control this entire spiral arm. The free traders operate throughout this region. And here, the Independent Worlds Coalition has over 200 planets." Ryan joined them at the table. "You're saying there are alternatives to the Council?" "More than that," Lisa said, her excitement growing. "I've been reading about how these groups work. They trade freely with each other, share technology, and defend each other from threats. Some of them are more advanced than Council members." She scrolled to another screen showing economic data. "The Council needs resources from thousands of worlds to maintain their lifestyle. Raw materials, food, manufactured goods, and yes, labor. They're not as powerful as they pretend to be." Helen looked over from where she sat. "Even if that's true, it doesn't change our situation. We're still one small planet against a galactic empire. But we're not," Lisa said. "Earth has things the Council wants Our rapid technological development, our military experience, our scientific creativity. They offered us protection because they need us, not because they're being generous. Jake felt something click in his mind. The laughter in the council chambers. They weren't just amused by us. They were nervous. Exactly, Lisa said. Think about it. Most species take 10,000 years to develop from primitive to spacefaring. We did it in 200. Most species achieve peaceful societies and then stay peaceful. We've been at war for our entire history and learned from every conflict. Ryan was nodding now. Our military doctrine is based on fighting enemies with superior technology and winning anyway. We've been doing that for centuries. The quantum communicator chimed, and President Rodriguez reappeared on the screen. This time she was joined by Admiral Steve Thompson, General Kate Williams, and Director Paul Griffin from Intelligence. We've made our decision, the President said. The Global Defense Council is unanimous. We reject the Council's offer. Jake felt relief wash over him. What do we tell them? Admiral Thompson leaned forward. You tell them that Earth chooses independence. We'll develop on our own timeline, in our own way. But President, Helen said, the dangers they mentioned are real. Pirates, hostile empires. General Williams smiled grimly. Helen, humanity has been fighting pirates and hostile empires since we figured out how to build boats. We'll manage. Director Griffin spoke up. Our intelligence networks have been monitoring Council communications since you arrived. They're dealing with rebellions in 3 sectors, resource shortages on a dozen core worlds, and growing unrest among their junior members. They need us more than they're letting on. There's something else, Lisa said. I found records of species that refused Council membership and thrived. The Council's power comes from dependency, not strength. Species that remain independent often do better than Council members. President Rodriguez nodded. Then it's settled. Jake, tomorrow you give them our answer. Earth is not interested in their protection, their guidance, or their empire. We'll make our own way. Jake looked around the room at his companions. Helen still looked worried, but she was nodding. Ryan was grinning like he had just been given the best news of his life. Lisa was already back to studying her tablet, probably planning their next move. There's one more thing, Jake said. If we're walking away from the Council, we need somewhere to go. Lisa looked up from her tablet. I've been thinking about that too. The Independent Worlds Coalition is holding a trade conference in the Kepler sector next month. If we leave here and go directly there, we show up as free humans looking for real partners instead of masters. Ryan finished. President Rodriguez smiled. Do it. Show the galaxy what free humans can accomplish. As the communication ended, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced since arriving at Nexus Prime. Hope. Tomorrow, they would walk into that Council chamber and give an answer that would shock the galaxy. Earth was not interested in their table. Scraps and false generosity. They were going to build something better. Jake Morrison walked into the Council chambers with his head held high and his shoulders straight. Behind him came Helen Carter, Lisa Parker, and Ryan Davis, each carrying themselves with a dignity that seemed to catch the attention of the watching. Aliens. The massive chamber buzzed with anticipation as thousands of beings waited to hear Earth's answer. Chancellor Zafar sat on the central platform like a living diamond, light dancing through its crystalline form. The other Council leaders flanked it on both sides, their alien faces showing expressions that Jake was beginning to understand meant amusement and superiority. Delegation from Earth, the Chancellor announced, its voice ringing through the chamber. Like music made of ice. Have you considered our generous offer of protection? Helen stepped forward, and Jake could see her hands were steady despite what they were about to do. Honored Chancellor, members of the Galactic Council, we thank you for your time and consideration. We have indeed reached a decision regarding your offer. The chamber fell silent in a way that felt heavy and expectant. Jake could feel thousands of eyes watching them, waiting to see how the primitive humans would accept their place in the galactic order. Earth respectfully declines your offer of protected status, Helen said clearly. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then Representative Vex of the Altruian Trade Federation made a sound like confused musical notes. I am sorry, I believe. There was a translation error. Did you say decline? That is correct, Helen replied. Earth declines your offer. The silence stretched longer this time before Chancellor Zephyr spoke. Perhaps you misunderstood the terms. We offer protection, guidance, and safety for your entire species. Without our protection, Earth faces certain destruction. Jake stepped forward. We understood perfectly, Chancellor. Earth chooses independence. The chamber erupted. Not in laughter this time, but in sounds of shock and disbelief. Jake heard what might have been gasps, angry hisses, and mechanical, grinding noises. Some aliens stood up on their viewing platforms, pointing at the humans with appendages Jake couldn't even name. Representative Thorak of the Draconic Imperium rose from his seat, his massive reptilian form towering over the platform. Foolish primitives. Do you have any idea what exists in uncontrolled space? The void hunters who consume entire civilizations. The machine plague that turns living worlds into factories of death. The star devourers who eat suns for sustenance. We're aware of the dangers, Ryan said calmly. Humans have faced extinction before and survived. Administrator Flux State materialized beside Chancellor Zephyr, its shifting form more agitated than usual. Your military technology is thousands of years behind galactic standard. Your weapons could not damage our scouts, much less our battle fleets. Lisa stepped forward with her tablet in hand. Actually, we've been analyzing Council military doctrine during our stay here. Your forces are designed for fighting other Council members who follow the same rules of engagement you do. Our military experience comes from fighting enemies who don't follow any rules at all. Explain, demanded General Nexus of the Mechanoid Consortium, its mechanical voice harsh with disbelief. Ryan smiled, and Jake recognized the expression from their military days. It was the look Ryan got when he was about to explain something unpleasant to an enemy. Your battle tactics assume honorable combat between organized fleets. Human military doctrine assumes the enemy will cheat, lie, ambush, and use every dirty trick possible to win. We've been preparing for unfair fights our entire history. Your nuclear arsenal, scoffed researcher Thin Wind from the Ethereal Collective. Primitive fusion weapons that most species abandon after achieving interstellar travel. Primitive, yes, Jake agreed, but effective. Earth currently maintains enough nuclear weapons to sterilize 50 planets. Not conquer them, destroy them completely. Most Council species gave up that capability because they consider it uncivilized. The chamber was getting louder as more aliens joined the conversation. Some sounded angry, others confused, a few almost amused. But Jake noticed that the Council leaders themselves were looking less confident than they had the day before. Chancellor Zephyr raised one crystalline hand for silence. Even if your primitive weapons could pose some threat, you are one world against thousands. The mathematics are simple, are they? Lisa asked, consulting her tablet. According to the data in your own public archives, the Council is currently dealing with rebellions in the Outer Rim sectors, resource shortages affecting 12 core worlds, and labor strikes on 47 member planets. Your military is spread across the entire galaxy, maintaining order. Representative Vex's blue skin seemed to pale slightly. How did you access that information? It's all in your public databases, Lisa replied innocently. You don't restrict access because you never expected primitive species to understand what they were reading. Jake took another step forward. We also know about the Independent Worlds Coalition, the Free Traders Alliance, and the Wanderer clans. Hundreds of species that chose independence over council membership and are doing quite well for themselves. Those are minor powers, Chancellor Zephyr said, but its voice lacked the confidence it had shown before. Barely civilized raiders and rebels. The Independent Worlds Coalition controls more territory than the Alturian Trade Federation, Ryan observed. The free traders have better ships than most council members. The Wanderer clans have been exploring unknown space while council species sit in comfortable luxury. Helen stepped forward again, reclaiming her role as Earth's primary spokesperson. We've learned a great deal during our stay here, honored Chancellor. About the Council, about the galaxy, and about ourselves. Earth has made its choice. And what choice is that? The Chancellor asked, though Jake could tell it already knew the answer. Earth withdraws its application for council membership, Helen announced. We have no interest in joining your organization, accepting your protection, or participating in your system. We choose to develop independently, to make our own alliances, and to face whatever dangers exist in the galaxy as free beings. The chamber exploded into chaos. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages, some standing and gesturing wildly, others making sounds that could have been anger or fear. Jake saw several council representatives huddled together in what looked like urgent discussion. Chancellor Zephyr stood, its crystalline form blazing with light. This is madness. You will be destroyed within a year. Pirates will raid your world, empires will conquer you, and horrors from deep space will devour what remains. Maybe, Jake said, but we'll face those dangers as free humans, not as your servants. Representative Thorak slammed something that might have been a fist onto his platform. A council cannot allow a rogue species to threaten galactic stability. If Earth refuses protection, Earth becomes a problem to be solved. The threat hung in the air like poison, and Jake felt his companions tense beside him. But he had expected this. Is the Council threatening Earth? He asked loudly enough for the entire chamber to hear. The watching aliens fell silent again. Jake could see many of them looking between the Council leaders and the humans with expressions he was learning to read as uncertainty. Chancellor Zephyr seemed to realize the trap. Threatening a species that had just asked for independence would make the Council look like the bullies they actually were. The Council does not threaten. We merely observe that independence can be dangerous. We'll take that risk, Helen said firmly. Jake looked around the chamber one last time. Earth thanks the Council for its time and consideration. We'll be leaving. Nexus Prime within the hour. As they turned to walk away, Chancellor Zephyr called out one last time. Where will you go? What civilized species will deal with rogues and primitives? Jake turned back with a smile. We'll find out. The walk out of the council chambers felt longer than the walk in, but Jake kept his pace steady and his head high. Behind them, the sound of angry alien voices rose like a storm. 6 months after walking away from Nexus Prime, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Freedom and watched the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. Through the view screen, dozens of ships from 20 different species moved in perfect formation toward the Kepler station. Human vessels flew alongside Xerian crystal ships, plasma-borne energy craft, and vessels from species he was still learning to pronounce. Admiral Morrison, came a voice from behind him. Jake still wasn't used to the promotion, but President Rodriguez had insisted that someone needed to command the Independent Defense Force, and Jake had become the obvious choice. We're receiving a priority message from Earth. Jake turned to see Captain Lisa Parker, approaching with a communication device. She wore the uniform of Earth's new Xenoscience Division, a branch of the military created specifically for working with alien technologies. Her expertise had become invaluable in the months since they had left Council space. "Put it through." Jake said. President Rodriguez appeared on the screen, and Jake was amazed at how much younger she looked than she had 6 months ago. The stress lines around her eyes had eased, and she was actually smiling. "Admiral Morrison," she said, "I wanted to personally congratulate you on the success of the Rigel operation." Jake felt a surge of pride. The Rigel operation had been their first real test as an independent force. When the Void Hunters had attacked the mining colonies in the Rigel system, the Council had written them off as lost. The Independent Defense Force had arrived instead, combining human tactics with alien technology to drive off attackers that had been terrorizing the galaxy for thousands of years. "Thank you, Madam President. The credit belongs to the entire Alliance. Our ships, Xerian shields, plasma-borne weapons, and crystalline computers. No single species could have done it alone." "That's exactly what makes this so remarkable," the President replied. "How are the preparations for the expansion going?" Jake looked out at the fleet around them. In 6 months, everything had changed. Earth had gone from being alone in the galaxy to being the center of the fastest-growing alliance in galactic history. Species that the Council had ignored or oppressed were flocking to join the Independent Worlds Alliance. "Better than we hoped," Jake said. 15 new species have applied for membership this month alone. The Wanderer clans are sharing their deep space exploration technology. The Free Traders have opened their routes to Alliance ships. Even some junior Council members are asking about switching sides. Lisa stepped closer to the communication screen. "President Rodriguez, our research programs are advancing faster than we ever imagined. Working with alien scientists who actually treat us as equals instead of test subjects has produced amazing results." "Give me specifics, Dr. Parker." "Our fusion technology has improved by 300% using Xerian crystal matrices. Plasma-borne energy weapons are being adapted for human ships. The crystalline species has helped us develop computers that think faster than anything the Council has. Most importantly, we're sharing everything we learn with our allies." President Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "And the military situation?" Captain Ryan Davis appeared on screen as he entered the bridge. He now commanded Earth's Rapid Response Fleet, a group of ships designed specifically for the kind of unconventional warfare humans excelled at. "The Council is getting nervous," Ryan reported. "Their intelligence services have been trying to infiltrate our operations, but they keep thinking like bureaucrats instead of soldiers." Meanwhile, 3 more sectors have declared independence from Council control. "Are they threatening military action?" the President asked. "They keep talking about it," Jake replied, "but they can't afford to. Half their military is busy putting down rebellions, and the other half is protecting core worlds from raiders. If they attack us, they'll have to pull forces from somewhere else." "Besides," Lisa added, "they're starting to realize that humans might be more dangerous than they thought." The President raised an eyebrow. "How so?" Jake smiled. "Remember how they laughed at our military experience? Turns out, most galactic species have been peaceful for so long that they've forgotten how to really fight. When the Void Hunters attacked Rigel, the Council fleet retreated after losing 2 ships. We stayed and fought until every last attacker was destroyed or driven off. The galaxy is taking notice," Ryan added. "Species that have been pushed around for centuries are starting to believe they can fight back. The Council's power was always based on other species thinking they were helpless without protection." Through the view screen, Jake could see the Kepler station growing larger as they approached. The massive structure was buzzing with activity as ships from across the Alliance brought goods, technology, and ideas to trade. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of Nexus Prime, Kepler Station was organized around the principle that every species had something valuable to contribute. "There's something else," Lisa said. "We're getting reports that council members are becoming increasingly unhappy with their leadership. Food shortages, resource allocation problems, restricted research programs. Some species are starting to ask why they need the council at all. President Rodriguez looked pleased. Any word from Chancellor Zephyr? Jake laughed. 3 messages this week. The first offered us better terms if we'd reconsider membership. The second threatened consequences if we continued to destabilize their territories. The third was practically begging us to negotiate. Our response? The same as always, Jake replied. We're not interested in their system. We're building something better. As they watched, a new ship approached the station. Jake recognized the design as Ulturian, one of the Council's major powers. But this ship flew the colors of the Independent Alliance. Admiral, came a voice from the communications station. Incoming transmission from the Eye's Liberation. It's Captain Vex, requesting permission to dock. Jake grinned. Vex had been one of the aliens who had offered Earth slavery, disguised as protection. 3 months ago, he had abandoned his position with the Council and brought his entire trade fleet to join the Alliance. Permission granted, Jake said. And send a welcome message. President Rodriguez was smiling on the screen. I take it that's another defection? The biggest one yet, Lisa confirmed. Captain Vex brought detailed information about Council military capabilities, trade routes, and internal politics. Plus, his fleet includes some of the most advanced ships in known space. He says the Council leadership is in full panic mode. Ryan added, they never expected species to actually leave. Their entire system is based on the assumption that everyone needs their protection. Jake looked out at the growing fleet around them. Human ships with their practical, blocky designs flew alongside vessels that looked like works of art. Some were made of living crystal, others of pure energy held in magnetic fields. A few seemed to be grown rather than built. President Rodriguez, Jake said, I want you to know that what we're building here isn't just about Earth anymore. We've created something that's changing the entire galaxy. How so? For the first time in galactic history, species are working together as equals. No dominant powers, no protected species, no hierarchy based on who's older or more advanced. Every member of the Alliance has an equal voice in decisions. Lisa nodded enthusiastically. A scientific collaboration alone is revolutionary. Human creativity, Zarian engineering, plasma-borne energy manipulation, crystalline computing power. We're solving problems that have stumped galactic civilization for millennia. And militarily, Ryan added, we're proving that diversity is strength. Each species brings different capabilities, different ways of thinking about combat and defense. The Council's forces are standardized and predictable. We're adaptive and creative. President Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, then smiled. So, the species that was too primitive for Council membership is now leading a galactic revolution? It's not about leading, Jake corrected. It's about proving that freedom works better than control. That cooperation works better than domination. That treating people as equals produces better results than treating them as servants. Through the view screen, Jake could see shuttles moving between ships as delegations prepared for the next Alliance meeting. Representatives from 43 different species would gather to discuss expansion, research programs, and mutual defense. Not one of them would be there because they were forced to be. Admiral Morrison, President Rodriguez said, you and your team have given humanity something we never had before. A place in the galaxy where we belong. No, Madam President, Jake replied, watching the bustling activity around the station. We've given the galaxy something it never had before. A chance to see what free beings can accomplish when they work together. As the communication ended, Jake felt a hand on his shoulder. Lisa stood beside him, looking out at the fleet of ships that represented dozens of worlds and cultures. Remember when they laughed at us? She asked. I remember, Jake said. But I wonder if they're still laughing now. In the distance, more ships were approaching Kepler Station. Ships carrying species that had chosen freedom over security, cooperation over control, and hope over fear. The galaxy was changing, one independent world at a time.